Shishiba versus Kanaguri. Both are, or at least were, members of the order, and both are incredibly strong. So today, let's see what happens when we pit these two assassins against each other. To begin our scaling, let's take a look at Shishiba's speed. Some of his most notable speed feats include landing a hit on Takazuki and then proceeding to scrap with him for an extended period of time and reacting to and countering Yotsumura's attack in what is effectively a pitch black room. I won't really be using any specific calcs in this video since Sakamoto Days doesn't really have a lot of those available, and it generally doesn't matter as it's easier to just scale Shishiba and Kanaguri based off how they perform against other characters. So speed-wise, Shishiba is very impressive. Keeping up with Takazuki is easily his best feat, and it's arguable that Takazuki is actually faster than regular Takamura since he was able to take Takamura's sword and cut him in half with it mere moments before Takamura was able to hit him. This is all combat speed though. Travel speed isn't really relevant for this video, but I just want to mention that Shishiba pretty much has 0 travel speed feats. For now though, just understanding who Shishiba can keep up with in a fight will be all we need to scale him. Moving on, we can take a look at Shishiba's AP. Some of his most notable feats include damaging Haruma, who Shishiba himself says has strength like Hyo. Assuming Shishiba is actually right, that should mean that Haruma also has comparable durability to that of Hyo, which would mean that Shishiba would be able to reliably injure the most physically imposing member of the order. Aside from damaging Haruma, we've seen Shishiba effectively damage Kumanomi as well. It's not clear how it happened since most of this fight happened off-screen, but when Kumanomi runs her 1v1 with Shishiba, she enters with her arm fully intact and only a few scratches. The next time we see her, her arm is messed up and she's visibly more injured. Comparing this to Kumanomi's fight with Hyo, we can see that while Hyo is physically more impressive than Shishiba since he's able to actually punch through the metal, both him and Shishiba are still doing relatively the same amount of damage to Kumanomi, meaning that Shishiba likely downscales from Hyo, albeit not to an extreme degree, considering a weakened Hyo was practically on par with Kumanomi. Durability-wise, Shishiba also gets some decent scaling based off Hyo. When Kumanomi punches Shishiba with her souped-up arm in Chapter 160, Shishiba flies back, but no damage is shown. Likewise, when Kumanomi punches Hyo after literally bringing him in for an easier hit, no damage is shown. Hyo didn't fly back, likely due to the fact that Kumanomi pulled him in for the punch, but the point is that both Shishiba and Hyo have the durability to tank a punch from Kumanomi with next to no damage. Additionally, Shishiba tanks a direct blast from Torres' sand blasters and comes out practically unscathed. The same attack had skinny Sakamoto waddling away thinking he lost, so Shishiba should be more durable than that of skinny Sakamoto. Outside of this, we do have 3 instances where Shishiba is actually injured. Those are when Yotsumura cuts off his fingers, when Carolina Reaper hits him with a gas saber, and when Gozu shocks him. For both the shock and the gas saber, I'd argue that it isn't really a knock on Shishiba's durability since it's not blunt force, and so Yotsumura cutting off his fingers is pretty much the only time we see Shishiba take legitimate damage. All of this is to say that Shishiba likely has near Hyo level durability, but I'd likely place it lower since the instances where he takes no damage from Kumanomi were also instances in which he blocked the attack. Still though, very impressive. Endurance, battle IQ, and hacks are all stats I can go through pretty quickly for Shishiba since there aren't that many showings. We know Shishiba was in an extended 2v1 against Kumanomi and Haruma, and even after that, he ran a 1v1 with Kumanomi, and then pulled back up to smack around Carolina Reaper and Kumanomi, and only became incapacitated after being hit with a gas saber. Additionally, he was sort of being smacked around when Oki and Torres pulled up, but even after tanking direct hits from both the sand blasters and Oki's Guando, Shishiba still fights Takazuki and only goes down after Gozu shocks him. For battle IQ, his best feats include using his hammer as a mirror and creating sparks to see in the Tunnel of Rebirth. And in terms of hacks, he has none. Now that we've covered Shishiba, we can move on to Kanaguri. Kanaguri really only participates in 2 fights, so his speed scaling isn't all that expansive. He's mostly able to keep up with skinny Sakamoto and is even able to blitz him, albeit after catching him off guard. During their fight, he's also seen maneuvering around lasers. You could make the argument that this makes him light speed, but with the way it's portrayed, I don't think that would make sense. It also just doesn't line up the scaling of the rest of the verse, since things like Gozu's lightning should be incredibly easy to dodge if Kanaguri and other order members were light speed. Outside of this, Kanaguri doesn't really have anything, so he's likely just relative to skinny Sakamoto. Kanaguri's AP also has limited showings. His director's board has been shown to be able to deal pretty decent damage to the likes of Satada and Skinny Sakamoto, but that's really about it. He smacks around Fat Sakamoto after he gets remotivated, but none of these hits are dealing significant damage, so for now we'll just say he's around Skinny Sakamoto level, likely scaling higher since he came out of that fight having dealt more damage than he received. As for durability, Kanaguri is actually quite impressive. Outside of being stabbed in the eye, none of the bleeding Kanaguri showed was real, meaning that throughout the entire fight he had with Sakamoto, Sakamoto never managed to make him bleed. After his fight, it's shown that he was bandaged by Akira, but considering the fact that all his blood was fake, this likely just means that he had some bruising. This is extremely impressive considering Kanaguri was at one point just tanking a barrage of blows from Skinny Sakamoto, and even went on to block a kick from a bloodlusted Sakamoto with 0 damage. Overall, Kanaguri's durability is really high. The same can be said for his endurance. Again, we really only have his fights during the JCC infiltration arc to go off of, but there's some decent showings. He goes from his fight with Satada immediately into his fight with Sakamoto, and after Sakamoto thinks he won, Kanaguri just casually gets back up and is ready to scrap with him even while bloodlusted. Kanaguri's endurance is legitimately really impressive, and we've yet to really see the extent of it since Kanaguri never really takes that much damage or fights for too long. For battle IQ though, Kanaguri never really shows anything crazy since he doesn't even consider himself an assassin. Hacks wise though, we do have the fact that Kanaguri gets a significant stat amp when he's motivated, with the trade-off being that if he's unmotivated, he becomes way weaker. Outside of that though, Kanaguri doesn't have anything crazy. Now that I've examined both fighters, let's see how they do in a fight. Right off the bat, I'm giving Shishiba the edge in speed. Shishiba was able to tag Takazuki and then immediately go into an extended clash with him, which is more impressive than anything Kanaguri has ever shown. During Kanaguri's fight with Skinny Sakamoto, he straight up asks how Sakamoto is moving faster than his lens can follow, implying that Sakamoto was just straight up blitzing him at that point. Sakamoto, who can be argued to be weaker than the one that fights Takamura in the museum, said Sakamoto is constantly getting closer to his prime self, massively struggles against Takamura, and never lands a blow on him. Again, Takamura can be argued to be slower than Takazuki, since Takazuki takes Takamura's sword mid-swing and kills him with it, meaning Shishiba should be a decent bit faster than Kanaguri. AP-wise, it's a little hard to tell. Fat Sakamoto, while still recovering in the hospital, tanked a hit from Hyo, but it's more than likely that Hyo was holding back. Fat Sakamoto later goes on to take a barrage of attacks from Kanaguri and not really take all that much damage, meaning Kanaguri is likely comparable to a Hyo that was more than likely holding back. Shishiba, on the other hand, has feats that should place him at Hyo level without the holding back, so I'm giving Shishiba the edge in AP as well. Where Kanaguri does get one over on Shishiba is durability. Faking all of your damage in an entire fight is simply better than anything Shishiba has ever shown, and Skinny Sakamoto's AP should at least be comparable to the likes of Kumanomi and Hyo, so while Shishiba isn't leagues under Kanaguri in durability, the difference is definitely there. Endurance-wise though, I'd also give this to Shishiba for his showings in the exhibition arc. Going 2v1 for who knows how long and still fighting afterwards, only stopping when he takes a mortal wound from an insanely strong weapon, is just better than anything Kanaguri has ever shown. While it's impressive that he was able to keep fighting after Sakamoto thought he won, Shishiba is still more impressive in terms of endurance. In terms of battle IQ and hacks, I honestly can't say much. Neither of them have many hacks, and I can't draw a definitive line in terms of who's smarter, so I won't really be considering these two. However, even not considering those two stats, I think the clear winner is Shishiba. Kanaguri may have better durability, but Shishiba is faster, hits harder, and can go on for longer. Kanaguri simply hasn't shown the relevant feats to say that he's on Shishiba's level, especially after Shishiba scrapped with Takazuki. It definitely won't be Shishiba's easiest fight, but I'm giving him the win more times than not, with mid to maybe high difficulty. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm super wrong.